Arif'in İstanbul Güncesi'nden herkese merhaba. Bugün 2 tane konuğum var. Birisi Oscar. Kendisi depremin ilk günlerinde Hatay'da bulundu. Ve ondan sonra depreme dikkat çekmek ve birazdan dinleyeceğiniz projesini gerçekleştirmek için Londra'dan Türkiye'ye yürüdü. Yürüyüşü bitti ve şu an İstanbul'da bize konuk oldu. Diğer konuğum ise İbrahim. Onlar depremin ilk günlerinde Hatay'da tanıştılar. Arkadaşlıkları yoğun, ilişkileri çok sıcak. Söyleşinin bundan sonrası ikisi arasında geçecek ve söyleşi İngilizce devam edecek. Ben ikisine de hoş geldin diyorum. Oscar, hoş geldin.
Merhaba.
İbrahim, hoş geldin.
Hoş bulduk.
Şimdi ben sözü size bırakıyorum. Teşekkürler.
Öncelikle bizlere bu mikrofonu uzattığın için teşekkür ediyoruz Arif. Now, welcome Oscar.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim.
So, introduce yourself a little bit.
Sure, so my name is Oscar Newson-Smith. I was born in London to a Spanish mother and an English father. And I've lived in both countries, Spain and England. And however, most of my life I've been educated in England, all the way up to university level. And then basically when 2020 came around during COVID time, I was made redundant from my corporate job. And that's when I fell in love with carpentry. And from there, I basically went into become a site manager. And then I ran a very small business. And then the earthquakes hit and the rest is history.
Perfect. Now I have some questions for you. So, tell us about your fundraising work.
Yeah, so it was the most incredible experience I've had in my entire life. It took me through a lot of mental, physical and financial challenges. And I don't really know where to begin, but let's begin geographically. So I started at House of Parliament and I started my long walk to Ankara at exactly 4:17 in the morning on the 17th of July, 2024. A lot of viewers might be wondering, well, why would you start that early at 4:17 in the morning? It doesn't make sense. And actually it's symbolic of the first earthquake that struck the land of Turkey on the 6th of February at exactly 4:17 in the morning. And so I walked all the way to France, and from France I walked through Belgium, through the Ardennes forest into Luxembourg. Luxembourg I walked through Germany, then Austria, Hungary, Serbia, and then I crossed the Balkans and Bulgaria, and then finally Turkey. And of course I finished, as mentioned before, in the capital city of Turkey, Ankara.
That was nice. So, tell us about Racso project.
So the Racso project is actually a social enterprise. And what social enterprise is basically it's a CIC, so community interest company. So it's like any other business. However, it's motivated to help the wider community. And basically our goals are the following. Our vision is to basically help a group of women in Samangda who've already set up a local charity called Sade. And the idea is to help fund them so that they can set up their own Rican cooperative. The idea is to also help redevelop the infrastructure of Samangda, but it's all limited to funds and to donations. Right now, we've got enough donations to basically help the Sade girls set up Rican cooperative. And around about 3 weeks ago, actually, I sent some money over to basically have a shop for the next 14 months. So we put down the rent on a shop for the next year and a bit. And I'm actually going down to Hatay tomorrow. And we're going to be painting up the shop. We're going to be refurbishing the shop. And we're going to be buying all the instruments necessary for production. So in order to produce, let's say, olive oil, tomato paste, and a few other products that are mentioned all on the website.
So that's the living project.
That's the living project, did you say?
Yeah. So this is a big project.
Mm-hmm.
What was the challenge in this project for you?
So the most challenging, so I can only, let's say, because I can't just pinpoint the hardest challenge. There were numerous challenges that I can think of. But if I were to like divide them into three, so let's say the first one was physical, the second one is mental, the third one is financial. So the biggest physical challenge was probably crossing the Balkans range in Bulgaria in the winter with a friend of mine called Harry, because it was just so cold and we were walking up and down an entire mountain range, so many mountains. So there's a lot of elevation to go with it, and it was just bitterly cold. It was hard for a number of reasons. So the second one was mental. I think the hardest mental challenge was most probably in Hungary. Reasons being because that was the time in which the days were shortest. So I was walking through Hungary in the period of December, and I was walking with a friend of mine called Luke, and we were leaving too late every day, and it meant walking through most nights. And it got to a stage where we were just so vitamin D deficient that it just played with our minds, and that was a really hard mental challenge, walking through Hungary in the month of December. The third hardest challenge, financial, was in Germany. Germany is, I think it was the most expensive country that I'd walked through. And so I felt the financial burden there the most stressful. So yeah, I'd say those three. Physically speaking, Bulgaria. Mentally speaking, Hungary. Financially speaking, it was Germany.
So, do you think you achieved your goal for now?
Do you think I've achieved my goal?
Yeah.
Well, I managed to get to Turkey alive. I managed to get here fit and healthy. And okay, in terms of raising enough donations, we haven't hit our target of £40,000, but we're halfway there, just over halfway there. So I've hit some targets, but not all of them. But you can't hit every target every single time. So, but no, I've hit a grand majority of my targets, so I'm very happy.
So, have you got fundraising page?
Yes, I do. It's the official GoFundMe page. So I'm collaborating with GoFundMe, and yeah, it's simply Oscar Newson-Smith. And then if you type in basically GoFundMe and then my full name, Oscar Newson-Smith, you'll find my page there and then.
So we can see everything in there.
Precisely.
Okay. Now our next question.
Yeah, nice. This is the important bit.
Yeah. What is your philosophy and where do you think we are heading?
So I'd like to believe that I'm a logical thinker, and I believe that we have to collaborate as individuals, as communities, as nations, in order for us to progress forward into the future. I think if we want to become an interplanetary species on a sustainable Earth, and then I know it might blow some people's minds, but even becoming an intergalactic species, the only way forward is to essentially harness the innovative and creative energy of each and every single individual. And so on a personal level, I saw the mass destruction of countless communities in Hatay and in many other areas of Turkey as well. And we need to help those guys out as much as possible, not only because we're morally obliged to, but second of all, because if we really care about our own future, we have to start caring about everyone's future. And in addition to all of what I'm saying, the construction industry in Turkey and throughout the entirety of the world is unsustainable on a number of reasons. And if we are to talk about climate change more specifically, it's the biggest emitter of CO2, like carbon dioxide gas, in the world. So now the way I see it is that we've got this blank canvas in Hatay, which is where I'm working, and we've got basically the opportunity to build sustainably and to basically be at the forefront of sustainable construction around the world, whilst also housing hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions, right? So it's very important that when it comes to adopting a certain philosophy, it's very important that we make sure it's logical for the progression of our society and for the advancement of our civilization. But when it comes to where we're heading, I've actually got quite a bit of a pessimistic outlook on where we're heading, because I don't think we're cooperating with one another as much as we could do.
Now we have one more question. What must we do to progress as a species?
So what we need to do to progress as a species is to really delve into our empathetic side, because if you look back on history, the worst, most atrocious things have occurred because of a lack of empathy, right? And also having respect for one another and having respect for the most important body in the world, which is Mother Earth. If we have respect for others there and for everything that we have, I think we've got more of a fighting chance of progressing into the future, simply because we depend on our mother. We depend on Mother Earth. So if we disrespect Mother Earth and we pollute on her, and we also at the same time, which we're doing now, disrespect people because we're raging wars and we are falling into corrupt business practices like what we saw in Hatay, it's just not going to end well. And it's pointless beating around the bush about this. We need to be tough about this. We need to be fierce about this. If we want a strong economy in Turkey and around the world, we have to cater for everyone's needs, because there's so much potential in people. There's so much potential in people. And it's as if governments and individuals and authorities literally do not care about certain communities. And actually that's not caring about themselves, because if you care about others, it will one day come round to you. So to summarize what I mean, in order to progress forward, we need to be empathetic so that we can collaborate more. We need to have respect for everyone and everything that lives so that we can respect ourselves contemporaneously. And that's the most important thing if we truly want to advance as a civilization.
Thank you, Oscar, for this program.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
For your walk, for your so kind of you, so brave, so amazing effort for Hatay. We are thankful.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
İbrahim, bu söyleşi için teşekkür ediyorum. Oscar'a da attığı bütün adımlar ve atacağı adımlar için de teşekkür ediyorum. Güzel hayatlar diliyorum.
Teşekkürler.
Teşekkürler.